Greetings. Thank you for coming for the book birthday of the ancestors. So, source booksellers
Thank you for directing.
is delighted to celebrate every single Adrienne Maree Brown book. And this the last in a trilogy. So it's sort of, it's sweet. It's a sweet ending. And Krista Tippett said it's a portal of hope. So if you're feeling some way about grievers, a little better.
The portal of despair.
And so just a quick introduction. Adrienne Maree Brown grows healing ideas in public through her multi-genre writing, her collaborations, and her podcast. Informed by 25 years of movement facilitation, somatics, Octavia Butler scholarship, and her work as a doula. We celebrate emergent strategy, New York Times bestseller, pleasure activism, loving corrections, please get it if you don't have it, and these three novellas, Grievers, Maroons, and Ancestors. Today she will be in conversation with
Sharon Howell. You are a hot pocket.
Sharon Howell has been a Detroit activist for more than 4 decades. Let's clap that up. She works with youth and community development. She's a co-founder of the Detroit Summer, the Boggs Center, and Riverwise Magazine. Also a member of the National Council of Elders, a professor emeritus, Oakland University, and currently a riverboat captain. And so thank you. We're celebrating Grievers.
Thank you. Thank you, Source Books, Knowledge and Labor Bookstore. Every coast to coast, I always tell people to get everything here. Thank you. One of the best.
Thank you. And Allison, will you let us know when we've talked for about 25 minutes so we can then open it up? I don't want to get all.
Is your mic on?
I don't know. Is it on?
It is now.
On? There we go. Okay, everyone's able to hear. So I am so excited. I love Adrienne Maree Brown, as I'm sure do all of you. And it has been, we hugged. It has been too long since she has been in this space in our city. And this novel is about playing with time and space, and I want to talk about both of those, but I want to start with space.
Yes.
Talk about, you haven't been to Detroit in a while.
Yeah.
So what's it like to be back now? What's it feeling like?
Hi everybody. Thanks for coming out. It's a complex stew of feelings. There's always grief, coming back and seeing things that have been built, and like I drove past my old building and there's now a massive building across the street that like changes the view and changes the whole everything, and there's buildings everywhere. It feels like I'm like what? So there's like a little grief of like, oh, I miss the Detroit that. But that's part of my road in here. I was like, this is the Detroit I like. And then there's other things which feel very exciting, like this physical space. Like the whole time I lived here, this was a dream, and then a seed, and then people watered the seed, and so it's just like, yeah, this was something that was like, this is always on the way. And then when we were planning this, and they were like, where can we do it? We could do it here, and they named the co-op. And I was like, we could do it at the co-op. We're doing it at the co-op.
Yeah.
We're doing it at a place where dreams come true. That sounds like a good idea. Where you feed the people, yes, that one. Especially for this book, it feels like a good match. And then it's a beautiful place. There's just a beauty to this city that I feel like not everyone understands or sees still. But I've always loved landing into here and just feeling that Blackness, that homeness, that rootedness here. Yeah. So I'm having a lot of like closure feelings. When I started writing this trilogy, I thought I was always gonna live in Detroit. And I thought this is gonna be where I'm gonna be home. And then the land that all my ancestors are buried in started calling me. And I was like, that's sweet, you learned a lot about home there, but you need to come home. And so it's weird now, because I feel like I committed fully to this place. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm coming back to like, okay, shoes are cute. By the way, I want everyone to notice that I do have on 2 pairs of shoes today. And that was not intentional. I want to just name it because otherwise I feel like, I don't know, just to be named. But I think that this is actually the outward sign of something that's happening around space and place as well, which is trying to be in places like this and feel the complexity of like there's celebration and grief concurrently in the same body, in the same space, in the same room. And I feel like my whole life is like that. And I think all of us maybe are somewhat in that territory right now. So people are like, how are you? And I'm like, I'm okay, but I have 2 different pairs of shoes on, but I'm doing okay. And I know this might indicate that something's really wrong, but it's not. I put on both of them to see which one I liked better. And then that was enough of a process, I guess. I was like, well, we're here. I didn't realize I was in the car on the way to the airport, and I just looked down, and I was like, well, this is what we are gonna wear. My friends were all like, go get new shoes. I was like, it's Detroit, I'll be fine. It'll be fine, it'll be a thing. So if you see young people wearing 2 different pairs of shoes, you know where to start. Yeah, but I like being back here also, just the people. I went down and was standing and looking around in that food co-op and just being like, it's a fine ass city, it's a dope city. There's some dignity here that is unique to Detroit. I'm grateful to be swimming in it.
Just one more on place.
Well, also, can I just say, I'm very excited now that you're an official riverboat captain.
Yes, I am.
Because that your journeys for us on the river taught me so much about other ways of seeing and understanding the city. And in this book particularly, there's a way that the river is a real indicator of what's happening and the changes that are happening. And so I'm so grateful to you for teaching me the river one trip at a time, one sunset at a time. Yeah. So I'm glad you leaned into your true calling.
Yeah.
You go by Captain Shay. You make people say that on the boat?
Yes.
I really like that, Captain Shay. Okay, good.
But on that, in this book, there are moments when the main character is surrounded by ancestors that not everyone sees, and also crowded by memory. And so I wonder if you could share a memory of the city that was in you as you wrote.
Well, before I say that, I'll say that since I landed, I've been having this multi-consciousness sense that I often get here, which I think of as spiritual presence, or ancestral presence sometimes, where I'm like, I'm in a space, but I'm like, we all feel all the other energies in the space. And I know not everyone does. I don't often want to talk, I don't want to make anyone feel left out. Because even if you can't feel it, I can feel that your ancestors are also up in here, and the city is like that to me. So one of the sweet memories I have, one of the sweet memories I'll share, thank you so much for this water, is the very first time I landed in Detroit. And I was coming to facilitate a meeting for Detroit Summer. And Jenny and Shetty came to pick me up from the airport, Jenny and Lee, and Shetty, who then became an ancestor. And the character Dune that's in Grievers is really the body, the face is Shetty, is Shetty. That's who I see as Shetty. Just the sexiest, sweetest, coolest organizer person ever. passed away a few years ago, and each of the people is sort of based or, grew along the lines of a ghost here. So it's like, I'm reading back and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember going on that trip and seeing the city, and Jenny Lee, she was like, you're gonna be back. Like, you're gonna be here. She knew, because Jenny knows. And then I have this memory of being with Sterling, who's another one of my favorite, like, Detroit minds and spirits, being in Sterling's basement and Sterling telling me about techno and just being like, I don't think you really understand techno because you lived in Germany. And I don't think you really understand, and just sort of breaking down for me with the love, how techno is a love story. I was just like, no, I've never heard anyone think that or say that they were thinking anything like that. And then maybe I'll just say, part of what I think completed when I was like, oh, I think it's okay to leave, was after Grace passed away. And I have my memories of getting on my bike and biking from the Purple House over to Grace's place on Field Street and going and knocking on her door and her being in her chair with her Afghan draped over the back and saying, have you heard about this? Or, like just sort of leaning in and just coming straight at my jugular was something I needed to know. I remember that ride and that experience of Grace, and then and getting to be with her in that little ending part where she was all over the place, and but just being, just being like, oh, Grace, you thought it was okay to go. Your system said okay to go. You were ready to go, and like, what is that? Is it okay to leave? Is it okay to love a place and leave and know that it's okay? There's a sturdiness in Detroit that as I land back, I'm like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. Like, and a lot of the things that were a part of my life when I was here, like the Ally Media Conference, there's things that I'm like, oh, that's Goodwill's. There's like all these things I'm like, you can't even get a tofu sandwich at Goodwill's. Like, but then I'm like, but it's okay. Now the food co-op is here. There's gorgeous prepared foods. And there's a sturdiness here. That there's a goodness to it all. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does anybody have anything about place they want to ask? It's a city.
Mm.
I wanted to jump to time.
I was gonna say, we could have the co-op and the Goodwill's pocket food.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you know that.
Let's vote.
I'm just like, I literally have traveled the whole earth over looking for a pocket sandwich, like a Goodwill's pocket sandwich with that little sauce. I've asked so many people, like, do you know the recipe of that sauce? Nobody knows it.
No, it is.
Okay, I'm glad we see.
The secrets we keep, right?
This is what I came here for.
So,
Okay, thank you.
so I'm also thinking about time.
Yes.
And one of the things I took away from this book
Mhm.
was there's always time.
Mhm.
That time should be slower and we should be in it. And yet I am thinking urgency.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with that sense of urgency when it's at some level, I get the feeling that we need to slow down, but it's urgent.
We urgently need to slow down. We do, and I don't know that I'm in such a humble place, I have to say, which I think anyone who's been organizing at all over the past 20 years, I hope also feels like we are in a humble place right now, like going through this past almost 2 years of genocidal escalation in Palestine, and then having the collapse of basically America at the same time, and both feeling like there's aspects of this collapse, there's aspects of this building of movement that we've been demanding and needing for a long time, that's always felt urgent, and that has still taken the time that it's taken, and now stuff feels escalated and really fast. And so I've been really humbled looking at time and saying, I think part of what I started to understand when I was writing emergent strategy and leaning into that was organizers can get locked into capitalist time, where we're like, right? Naomi Klein wrote a whole great book about it called Disaster Capitalism, but I think it's in capitalism. I haven't seen some other variation of capitalism that doesn't lead to genocide. So I'm there, but I think there's this way that organizers can get locked in that and be like, I can make a plan inside of time, and I will change the conditions through this plan inside of time. And I think what I started to understand through my facilitation and organizing was there's something outside of time or that works non-linearly, that is about relationship. And that if we're in relationship and we're focused on being in right relationship, then it's not that there's not urgency, but you start to realize there's always need. And if there's always need, then part of what you want to get good at is flowing yourself towards that need and finding the pace at which you flow well. And I recognize that we need all the different paces. So in general, I think we need to be slower because I think we're living in the tyranny of the fast-paced, hyper-productive, like entrepreneurial energy. Which I think some people will say, oh, that's the masculine energy, but I'm trying to be like, it's something all of us can get stuck in. And so we've been in the tyranny of that like, if you want to do anything in the world, you're like, I'm a knitter. Well, how are you gonna be a business knitter who's been, selling the most knits? I don't think you sell knits, but I think you know what I mean. Like that energy has to come in, right? As soon as you start to create or make anything. So I'm like, how do we let the people who want to move at that pace, move at that pace? And where are the places in society where that pace is actually needed? The emergency room.
Mhm.
That's about the only place. But those people should be there, right? Order comes to me. I love being under high pressure. Great, go work in the emergency room. And then for almost everyone else, we need a different pace that allows us to build the relationships we need to be able to respond accordingly to the different needs. So I see some of that happening now, where like right after, Palestine is in the front of mind for me. So like right after October 7th, I remember being like, right now, this week, we have to stop. We have to stop what's coming because we know it's gonna happen. We have to stop it immediately. Even though I know better, and I know that's not how this country works or military industrial complex works or Zionism or any of the things work, there was still, I deeply believed that if enough of us were like, no, this time we mean it, and I remember having that same feeling when they were bombing Baghdad. I remember having that same feeling when the George Floyd uprisings were happening. There's been so many times in my life where I was like, no, this is it. We're gonna just, enough of us care about this and we're gonna change what's happening. And then you sit in it and you're like, oh, I can't, this is not a ship that turns that quickly. So then I need to move at a pace at which I can sustain caring about this, being informed about this, and taking meaningful action about it, and drawing other people in. And so that's been part of my work. And we were laughing and talking about this earlier about how for a lot of people, intimate relationships are the way we actually learn about stuff, because that's a place where we're like, I'll stay in this situation long enough to be changed. And then I'm like, I'm so grateful I was in such a long relationship with Invincible, who taught me about anti-Zionism in a deeper way than I had gotten from a workshop or from my community. And I'm like, oh, like a lot of people over the past 2 years in relationship have been moving this needle, have been moving this idea. The same thing, I look at what's happening in LA right now, and I'm like, there's so many relationships that are needed and everywhere. I'm sure it's happening here. I know it's happening in Durham too, is that our communities are fighting back against ICE and saying you can't take our folks. But it takes a lot of relationship to change people's minds around stuff like that. And so when I think about like time and pace, I'm like, we also need the people who move at a slower pace, who are like, come out on my boat and let's talk about being people, being human. Let's feel into relationship together. That way, when I need to call on you for something, you know the kind of human I am, and I know the kind of human you are. And I know that you have more than just a surface level of understanding of what we're talking about, because we're also in a time, I think time and depth are in this beautiful relationship with each other, where if you think about like having someone sign a petition, it doesn't take any time, just go sign your name, put your name on this. But the depth of commitment you've made is so shallow that someone else could come and ask you to sign a petition saying exactly the opposite thing, and you probably don't, you're not even gonna read it. You said you want me to sign it, okay, we need more depth in terms of how people are engaging in all these things. I'm like, I'm not asking you to stand up for someone else, I'm asking you to transform yourself. And that's gonna take time. I'm also transforming myself. And so I wanna move at the pace at which a transformation is actually possible, which is slower, I think, than we think. But then there's these moments like this moment where it's like now everything feels like it's moving very quickly, and I actually know exactly where to send my energy and my attention because of all the relationships I'm in. So I'm in relationship with Palestinian organizers who are like, here's what we need. And I'm in relationship with folks in LA and they're like, here's what we need. And I'm like, okay, great, because of our relationships at depth, I can actually very quickly move myself into what I think of as right solidarity, right? Which is like, I'm not just sending money to any old body, I'm sending it to specific families, or there's just things like that. And I'm like, I trust you, so you don't have to explain to me, this is my cousin's uncle. I was like, just, if you say you need it, I'm gonna do that. So there's something that's what I mean, right? Where I'm like, we need some people who are willing to move fast, others who are willing to move slow and as deeply as possible, and then others who work in the middle who help tie it all together. I think when you're a facilitator, you do some of that tying it together, or I always think of myself as a bit of a trench runner, like, okay, there's these folks and these folks, but I have some information that I think could help between them. Oh, and then there's no perfection to it. So I also feel like I've only learned right relationship to time by doing all the wrong things. Like I really tried to sustain being the fastest person that ever lived and the most efficient. Like anyone who was in my rooms, I was like, I'm trying to be very efficient. Let's stop wasting time. The time is now, Yes. And then my body actually has been falling apart. So my body's like, that's not your pace. Like, good, you're very smart. But that's not the pace at which you can live your life and if you want to be here any longer. And so I've had to, like, part of why I thought I was going to be coming back to Detroit all the time. And my body is like, you cannot travel, you can barely travel. I'm reclaiming some of my health, and this was a gift to myself to be like, I want to celebrate this book in Detroit. I want to be here. But my body has also been telling me to slow down, and I think more of our bodies that we're all willing to talk about are telling us what our actual pace needs to be. I think when people are in a deep depression, it's often because they've gotten themselves slowed down, like too slow in terms of getting to their life's work and getting to what they're supposed to be doing. So they're like, I can see that it's over there, but I can't get myself to it. And I think that is a depressing state. And then I think we have our other folks who are like, I'm going too fast, I can't feel or do anything. So our bodies, I think, are giving us data all the time, and a lot of it is this whole system is moving way too fast. Deepen in, slow down, and be present, and then show up as needed.
I really appreciate that. And
I want to hear your answer to
I
that.
want to know though, did one of your characters or your characters help you come to that,
Yes.
Yeah,
So Mama Roo, who's she shows up in maroons, and then we get to spend some very fun time with her and ancestors. She's seen as like the mad woman, right? Like when we first meet her, she's like, she comes around and it's just like, she's over here doing her thing. You just gotta let her do her thing. But sometimes she channels and it's dope, but generally just gotta let her kind of do her thing. And, I have been in so many meetings here in Detroit where I was like, this is a Detroit character. These are Detroit characters, right? And we've all been in those organizing meetings where we're like, this person's just gonna come and say it how she's gonna say it, do it how she's gonna do whatever it is, right? So I wanted a character like that here. And it's like, this is not someone who's gonna follow your like Robert's rules of meetings or anything like that. This is someone who's on their own time. But she's so valuable. Actually, like once you tap in and sit with her, she's so valuable because she moves outside of time. And when I think about the people I've learned the most from, a lot of them are like that. I'm like, how did you jailbroke yourself out of this whole time trap? And it's not like you're not living your life each day, aging each day, but you're not doing it in this hamster wheel energy where you feel like, I can't remember what happened yesterday and I'm not looking forward to what's happening tomorrow. You know, I'm like, oh, and so I've been trying to do that. I also think Dune taught me a lot, like with grievers, I wanted to give her the permission to wallow and be in her grief in a way that I never have allowed myself to. So when I lose someone or something, you know, I'm a Virgo oldest child. Like I'm like, well then, we've got to get this plan together. We have got to get it, we got to figure out how we're gonna bury them. Are we gonna do this? We're gonna do that. I just go straight to the logistics and then to like, who else here someone else here must be having a bigger feeling than I'm having, so I'm gonna take care of that person. And so it'll sometimes be like 6 months and all of a sudden I'll be like, friend died, and all of a sudden I'm just like overcome with grief. I'm like, why am I crying now? Everything's done. Right? So Dune, when her mom dies, I'm like, how would you like to be able to live the year after your mom died? Like if you could just close the door and tell everyone to leave you alone and just cry for your mom for a year, you know? I'm like, yeah, that would be appropriate for the way I feel about my mom to cry the rest of my life. I'm like, I love my mom so much. I love my dad so much. I love everyone I've ever lost. I would have spent a really long time, but there was no permission. You know, I felt like in the society that we live in, it's like, take your 2 days, do your services, and then, you know, hey, so sorry about your loss. And then let's keep it moving. So I think that I let the characters show me that I was like, I want to slow down. And I had never admitted that to myself, that, that I wanted to slow down. And it's actually really hard to slow down, especially for grief, you know, like, it's like being a doula. This is why I talk about being a doula all the time, because so much of being a doula is just waiting. It's like, I just have to sit here. And then something's gonna happen eventually. And I've got to make the sitting here as good as it can be. And it's like trying to do that for yourself or asking your community, like, can you show up for me? I have a dear friend who passed away a couple years ago. And whenever others, we get together and we just sit and we don't talk, we just kind of let it simmer, and we're like, I feel him, you know, or a cardinal will fly up, and we're like, there he is, okay. But it was like, oh, there's nothing else to say. We've told all the stories about this person, we've made all of our theories about why he's not with us anymore, but now we just have to sit with it. And yeah, I feel like the book helped me grow the patience to fully live into and expand into the time that I have. And now my days feel a lot fuller, right? But not busier. And I keep making that distinction too, because people tell me like, you're so busy. I'm like, I'm not busy. My life is full. But that fullness looks like I sit, like I said, I sit in my backyard a lot, watching the birds and just being like, why are you guys arguing about that? There's plenty of birdseed. And, you know, just talking to them or like being with nature. I've been doing this practice lately about if you go out and talk to a tree and you tell the tree to come closer to you, it will come closer and touch your face. I saw this, you know, on the internet, and I was like, no way. And then I went outside and did it, and I've been doing it now with trees, and I'm like, this is a much better way to spend my time than 90% of the things I've done in my life. I'm like, it just feels so good when the tree gets all up in you, and it's like, yes. Right? But you need a little spaciousness and time to do that. And the other piece is like, I think we feel like when we're moving fast, our work is more serious and our work is more legit and it's more respectable if we're moving really fast, and we can move really fast. And I know that I used to look at that, like when I was like looking for people to work with, I was like, are you the fastest on the draw or whatever? But that's not always the best work. That's often like the quickest way is rarely the deepest way or the way that the thing needs to be done. So I've also been really noticing that. And I'm like, oh, I want to pay attention to the quality of people who move slower or slowly, or the quality of just people who move very intentionally. And Yeah, I think right now is a time like that where we have, these uprisings, like, I think we've seen now, it's like we're learning, I think we're learning to be in these moments and be like, okay, now it's in Minnesota, okay, now it's in LA, here's what we're gonna do, we bring our energy, we bring our resources, we remind them, here's what you do about the tear gas, here's what you do. But it's like, okay, and then that will pass, there'll be a moment where that passes, and then what do we do next? Are we escalating? Are we moving it to other places? I'm like, there's quality, hardcore strategists and organizers all over the place thinking about those things, but then there's just people. There's people everywhere, and they're not moving at a pace that we strategized or planned. They're just moving at a pace of being in community. And I'm like, I take that seriously in a way that I don't think I did for a long time. And I do feel like Detroit elders were trying to explain that to me. Like, when we were coming with the social format, I was like, we just gotta get this thing done. I know you guys want to have it on the process. And y'all were like, okay, I mean, is it gonna be a conference? Okay, we've done conferences, okay, and it doesn't matter how we do it. And I think about that often, and I'm like, oh, how should set the timeline? Like, the integrity of the process should set the timeline.
Well, oh, Allison, are you saying it's time to end?
I don't know, no, she's just over there, I guess.
No, I mean, so we should open it up more.
Yeah, maybe just a question.
Okay, yes, yes.
You do one more, because you got something there on your lips,
Yeah.
and we'll go.
One, just,
Yes.
I
Time is made up also.
Yeah.
What I felt in this was the love of city and the love of people, all kinds of crazy people.
Yes,
Crazier the better in some ways.
that's my favorite.
And are you gonna let them go?
I don't think so. I mean, I will say, I was overjoyed I mean, every writer's dream is to turn something in to a publisher or someone and have them come back and be like, I think it's a trilogy. Me too. Sure. Yes, 3 books, but I definitely thought, I'll be able to do everything I need to do, it's 3 whole books, like, this is fine. And now, hi babies. Now there's like characters that I'm like, I barely got to touch this one, I barely got to touch that one. But I don't think that they need a whole book necessarily, but I do imagine that at some point there'll be a collection of more short stories or something. Because there's just characters, and you'll see in the 3rd book, there's like, I had to make room for the sex scenes. So I was like, I gotta pull this whole section out. But like, there's a couple of characters that I still feel really curious about their, like, what happens next? What happens next for them? And Ursula Le Guin is like a good, it's inspirational like author in this way because she wrote the Hainish Cycle, which is like connected stories, but they're not like linearly told. They're just all in a similar world. And so I'm like, Detroit is a world, and Murmur City is a world now. And so I can keep writing stories for these people if they need me to. At the same time, I do feel, in the same way like Detroit told me to write this, and I feel like now Durham is calling for me to write some swampy southern stories. And so I'm curious about the intersection between them. But there's a particular character, Muhammad, that I really want to spend some more time with. And so we'll see.
Right. Okay, thank you. And now, anybody, comments, thoughts, questions? When we get to the book signing?
Wait. Oh, do we do this one? Okay.
No pressure. Yeah. Hi.
Hey, Becca.
Neighbor. Hi there.
I'm just curious about, if you wanna mention other characters that have, pieces of real people in them.
Oh, yeah. So Vivian is Grace. Dawood, who shows up in Maroons, is a study off of David Blair, the great poet. Charity Hicks informs both Eloise and Kama, Dune's mother. I'm trying to think of some of the others. Mama Sandra shows up a little bit in Mama Roo. Like physically, that's what she looks like to me. And spiritually, there's some imprint there. General Baker is one of the elders on the council. Yeah, like, those are the main folks that where I was like, the first book was the main one where I was just saying, I just want to be with Grace and I just want to be with Shetty. And then I knew that Dawood was coming, like I knew that Blair was coming. And Blair, so have y'all read Maroons? If anyone who's read Maroons, the hardest thing in the world was trying to write those radio pieces. Like I had to get high and really get out of my head and just like let myself go. Because I was like, I can't even pretend like I'm gonna write poetry as good as he wrote poetry. So we have to let that go. And we just have to write something that feels like it's transmitted, you know? And so then I had to be like, okay, you have to let this be like inspired by, but not try to capture, because he you know, these are all people that are beyond capture. So those are some of the, yeah, the ones that I was like, you all need to pay attention. There's a lot of, in the organizer, in the council, there's a lot like Ron, there's just different energies that I was trying to capture that were like, imagine being in a meeting with these folks and the way they were in meetings, both the good and the hard, you know. Yeah, but those are some of the ghosts. And of course, the yellow house next to your house, which now has a huge building next to it. Oh my God. I know. I was like, okay, this is gonna change the tour. I mean, it literally, I'm like, we wouldn't set up the building there anymore, but I'm glad it's there for the ghosts.
There was another hand back. Oh, here we go.
Hey, hi. So happy to be here with you. Happy to be here with you. I'm curious about your creative process, and I'm wondering if you could take us to your favorite place to write. What does it look like? And then tell us about, how you get yourself in the mood to write. And,
Awesome.
and what happens when the words don't come out?
Yeah. Well, my favorite place to write is a bathtub. And I've written, or submerged in water, but I've written a lot of the root aspects of my work come through in the bath. So now my writing process on a good day is I wake up, I play like my little word games, I listen to a podcast, I make some coffee, or have some breakfast, whatever, and then I run a bath. Get in the bath, have a little tray with that I can put my computer on, not plugged in. Okay? Because we're smart for a really long time. So, but it's also nice because it's like then it's just plugged in and it's charged up. And so I've got like, not forever, you know, but I can sit in the bath. I like to get it very hot when I first get in, because I think for some reason my mind is like, that's what's gonna get it going, you know? And then technically, I keep a Google Doc that's just my raw material for a project. So when I'm starting a project, I make a Google Doc for that project, and all the raw material goes in there. And then I have a Scrivener when I know I'm making a book. Scrivener is this other like software that you could download from Latte something, I don't know, but it's basically like a book writing. It's like creating a Google Drive or a drive that's just for that book. So every day I write into the Google Drive as I'm like walking around the world, I'm like, oh, and then Dune should run up the stairs, da, da, da. I just put that note there. All my random notes go in there. And so the beginning of each morning is when I sit down and I move everything from the random into the specific place it should be in the Scrivener, like a bucket. I do that usually for a while, sometimes for years. Like with emergent strategy, it was like years that I was making notes in my head and grabbing stuff. And then there'll be the intense moment where I'll be like, okay, now I have, 10 days to pull it all together. And so then it's like, then it changes, the intensity changes. Right now, I'm glad you asked this, because I'm really in a study of my creative process, because I've landed a book deal where It's not just me, right? Something's happening.
Yeah.
It's not just me. Hold on, is that, yeah, I'll pass this one back to you. But I'm in a different process where I've landed a book deal which means I have an advance to write this book. And I've never had that before. And so I'm like, this is too much time. Like, what do I do with all this time? I'm used to being like, I write my books on the edge of a very, very busy life. Now I'm like, no, life is full. So I'm learning some things about like, how do I not have to do the long, intense, like 10-hour days at the end? Even though there's part of me that loves that, it's just like, I'm a writer, I'm like I just don't eat, But now I'm like, oh, I have a year to write a book. And so I'm trying to be much more steady with it. I will say a couple of things. I trust the writing process. And one of the beautiful things, like I've started doing much more outlining than I've ever done before. So that if the words if I don't just sit down, it's like, the story is coming, then I have this outline to look at and just be like, okay, like, does anything on here move me? And then sometimes the thing I'll be like, can I at least move into questions? Like, what questions do I have about this? Write down the questions, and usually I'll start answering one of the questions. I think the secret sauce is that I wake up a lot of times with ideas. I forgot that part. This is where I think my ancestors do their work, is like right before I'm about to wake up, they're like, okay, here's the poem. It goes like that, whatever. And I look up, it's like there's something that feels almost fully formed waiting. But if I don't catch it, if I don't like right away be like, got it, it's gone. And I'm like, God, that was the prettiest, what? Like thought or something, I don't know what it was. I hate that. So I'm very like disciplined. Like when I wake up, if I need a voice memo or something, whoever eventually goes through my papers, whoever's gonna be like, then there's these random 5-second voice notes that are just like, please, but it means something to me. Yeah, and then I do go ask for help. So like I was explaining to Shay that with this book, I had written in Maroons, I accidentally wrote myself into a utopia, right? I didn't know I was doing it. I thought I was creating this totally free thing, but it wasn't my fault. Detroit did it. But then when I was sitting down to write this book, I kept trying to move into it and feeling very stuck in a way that I never felt before. And so I went down to the Eno River down in Durham, and I was like asking for help explicitly. And they were like, you don't believe in utopia. So you got to get your people out of utopia. You either need to get them out or let everyone in, but you figure that out. And so I was like, oh, I had to figure that out, right? So then writing from that place where I was like, I don't want to let everyone in. And so I had to examine that in myself. I was like, not the bad people, right? But the earth had a solution, so I'm not gonna give away of it. So that's a part of the process too, though, is I love going outside and asking for help. And I don't know quite where the answers come from, but if I'm outside and if it's like really bad, I'm like, take off your shoes, really get your feet on the ground. But I don't think that the writing just comes from in here. Like, I think it's relational. So if I'm stuck, I need a conversation, or I need to ask for help. And then I have readers. So I have different people who I share different kinds of work with. My sisters, so like I will often share like an early draft and be like, here's a cool idea I just had, and she'll be like, that's a story, or that might be a song or something else. Yeah, I think that's all the meaningful parts of the creative process. But yeah, I tell people, I'm like, a lot of times if you think you're blocked or the words aren't coming, it's because you haven't got your setup right. And the work knows that. I think it's like, you can't fit me into a 45-minute Pomodoro writing block. I need more time. I need more this or that. So being willing to adjust your process, or sometimes it's like, I need to clean my house first. If I'm trying to write in a messy house, it's just not gonna work. And unfortunately, I can't even, like I used to be like, I'll just step outside the house. And then I'll write out there, and it's like, no, you're still cluttered over there. So, yeah. Thank you. Good luck.
Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much. I think maybe one of the last times that you were here, I got to see you, with Tonde.
Oh, yes.
And that was before I moved to Detroit. So I've been in and out of the city. I'm in housing and community development. I live here now. And I think it's
Yay.
really fitting the shoe scenario because I often describe like what I'm feeling here is very frenetic
Yeah,
in terms of the energy, and it's very. I described to my boss the other day. It feels like we're playing Hungry Hungry Hippos, and we're all just trying to grab at this like chaos that is happening,
yeah.
and it's wild right now in terms of development and everything. And so I'm wondering for what advice that you might have or like insights that you could share for somebody who often is in between those spaces of
Yes.
relationship and chaos, and like how do I just sort of reconcile the need to like be grounded, and I think subconsciously I'm stalling and like dropping anchors where I can,
Uh-huh.
but it's also like very causes tension between, well, we need to get this done, and there's city council elections and mayoral's coming next year, and it's just
Yeah.
gonna be, so
Yeah,
trying to like sit in that, manage time in a way that makes sense,
Mhm.
for so many things.
Yeah, I love this question. I mean, one piece I think is to electoral politics in particular, and like being in relationship to electoral politics is a very particular pace and cycle. I think of it as like hurry up and wait, right? But it's like hurry up and get this person elected and then wait for anything to ever happen. But but I will say, first noticing in yourself that frenetic energy, right? That even the fact that you're like, I feel like I'm dropping, I can feel that. So there's something in you that is actually the point of change. Because I was looking around like other people don't seem to be as bothered by this as I am, or if it's your vibe, cool. It's just not for me. Giving myself permission to slow down and to meet a deeper root, a deeper well, a deeper system to move it through. That has been a big part of my adulthood. It's been like, oh, I want to move in relationship to something other than this system. And it is ancestral and it is relational and connected. I'll also say that there's something about just accepting what is, right? So when I looked down and I realized my shoes were like this, I took a picture immediately, sent it to my family so they could laugh at me because they don't take me seriously. And it's like the best thing, they're never like Adrienne, they're always like, girl, that's so Adrienne, like it is, but then I just accepted it and I was like, this is hilarious and this is what it is. And there's nothing, one of my friends was like, oh, you better go buy some new shoes before you get in front of these people. And I was like, that's not gonna happen. I mean, but I was like, it's just also not who I am. Right? I was like, there is someone who would get off the plane and run to the store or something. That's just not me. I was like, I need to go to Cedarlands and get hummus with roasted pine nuts because no one else makes it that way, right? We all have our priorities, So then I think the last piece of this that I will just say for me is I really had to excavate and find my own center so that no matter which space I'm in, it's very clear to me what matters and that's what's driving me in the space. And so that I'm not reacting to whatever's happening in that space or who's there or what I think that they want me to perform for them. I did performance arts and that's a fine self, it's just not me. So I'm like, my only job in this lifetime is to be myself and consistently as often as possible. And that's your only job, is to be yourself consistently as often as possible. And so if you find that, if there's a great practice, there's a group called the Embodiment Institute, and they have this online thing that you can take a course on like embodiment and centering. And I find that is super helpful because then when I show up someplace, I'm like, I'm not in control of the majority of things that are happening. I'm only in control of how I show up and how much I let myself actually be in this space. And whatever happens will be in direct relationship to how present I am, right? Not how much I prepared myself to be what they wanted, So then if you're like, I'm being me, and it doesn't feel like a good match for me here, because I think that's the other thing. Capitalism makes us constantly think we're auditioned to be in the room or at the table. And there's a flip that switches when you turn 40, the flip that switches at a certain point in your life where you're like, no, like my life and time is the most precious, miraculous resource that I have to give in this world. Everything else can be taken, but this is all I actually have. And so I get to have sovereignty over as much of it as I can. When I show up or when I fight for other people, it's because I'm like, you do not have the right to take away their agency over their time. Like, if they're gonna be poor, they're gonna be poor, and we'll figure out how to be poor. We'll figure it out. We've always figured it out, but just stop attacking us and saying that you get to end our lives, you get to end our peace. That's when I get my rage turned up, right? But I'm like, for those of us who are not in war times, we're not like on a front line with someone trying to gun us down every day. I'm like, you need to claim the sovereignty that is available to you so that you know it, so that it's really deep, because they will show up eventually for you, right? Like, I'm so curious when these battles hit these places. I'm like, now where are the philanthropists? Where are the nonprofit executive directors? Where do we land, right? Like, are we more towards the sort of corporate thing that has been trying to colonize us through grants? Or are we more towards the part of us that originally showed up to do the work for the people? And I know or somewhere in between or something else. But I'm like, we have to be ready to show up for what really matters to us. And we only do that by grounding in it every day. And then being that. So that anyone who meets you is like, I know what she cares about. She actually doesn't really fuck with some of this stuff. But she shows up every day for her people, whatever it is. They just know that about you. Right? Yeah. How's that feel? How's that meant? Yeah. Oh, and maybe also just be honest about we're all balancing this stuff. Like every person I know, every human is trying to figure out right pace and trying to balance that. And like how much do I give to things that I don't fully agree with, and how much do I give to starting things I do agree with, and how do I ground in my own life and my grief, how do I balance all that? So you're not alone in that. So it's good to ask those questions and ask the people around you, like, how are you navigating this time? Because I think, especially when shit's hard like it is now, people will be like, how are you? I know it's bad, but how are you doing? And instead of being like, how are you? Like, how are you navigating this time? Because almost everyone I know is like, things are kind of amazing in my own life. I feel freer than I have. I feel clear about my commitments that I have. I'm showing up more than I have. Or a lot of people are really having this incredible awakening, that expansiveness that happens when you start to recognize, like, if the system's not holding me, if the people and my friends and my family, my communities and my relationships are holding me, I can be so much freer, and that feels good immediately. And then we figure out how we harness that power. I think we're still figuring that out.
Hi, do you have the time? This is beautiful. You're beautiful. Do you have the time to do a reading?
Sure. Yeah. From this?
Please.
Yes. Let's see. Okay, this is the first time that I'm doing an event for this book, so I'm like, I have no idea what to read from here, but. Oh, yeah, that's
So
great.
beautiful.
Okay, beautiful. That's okay. Well, I have an assignment. So this is one of the elements of this book is that we start to see Dude's ancestor journal. So in the first two books, she was like documenting what other people were saying in the city. And then this is where she starts to channel. She's trying to figure out how to listen to these ancestors. And so she's journaling. So the ancestors are always there, always with you. When you don't ask for their support, they grow heavy, forgotten. When you call on them, on your benevolent ancestors, their memory cell can activate on your behalf. Their souls are in peace, but everything in the universe has particle existence, as memory, in every moment and every place and everyone they connect to in life, memory, dark matter. It is the unseen thickness of existence. It is the river of energy moving forward through the not yet known in your body. Yeah. I'm like, doo-doo-doo. And I'll read this little piece too. This is near the end. A plague can be a rescue operation for a people in hell, and it can be a terror to those in the midst of heaven. Beyond any plague is a question: do humans still want the gift of earth? Beyond this plague is the specific question: can Black people breathe and know peace on this earth? There is a small group of humans who are saying yes, more than one. This is the most hopeful thing we can tell you. Another small group of humans led by Indigenous and Black visionaries have decided to belong to a place, and the place has accepted their stewardship, has chosen to protect them, has said yes to belonging to them. And it isn't a theoretical protection. It's a home that humans cannot enter without permission. There are many places like this on Earth, and you know of none of them unless you are invited. Yeah. It was really fun writing this one. Really fun. Thank you. How we doing, boss lady? Oh, I will say too, I try not to do a ton of spoilers in general in my life and time, whatever. But I did do a really deep dive interview with David Naiman, who has a podcast called Between the Covers. So I would recommend, like, if you're gonna read this, read it and then listen to that interview. He does these like, it's like 2.5 hours of a podcast, just two people talking. And I listen to him do these interviews with other people, and I'm like, it's like, this is your life. He has special surprise people call in and make you cry and all this kind of stuff. So, yeah. Shay, can I say thank you so much?
Thank you.
So before we go, I want you all to know Shay is one of my teachers. Shay was one of the first people I actually met coming to Detroit, and was someone who I got to witness as a teacher to all the people that I knew. And I was like, she's white. Can we trust her? Anyway, but I was like looking at all the people who she was in community with, and you really opened my heart. I come from a Black and white family, and I'd had a lot of really mixed relationships with white folks, and you really modeled for me what it looked like to be in your integrity and in your own dignity, and not just like, I'm apologetically white, which is I think that what I see all the time. I'm like, no, you're like a dignified person who's like, I've been in this struggle for a long time. I've given my life completely to it. I've got some things to teach you. I'm really curious. And that's that model, that's that way of being that I so want to cultivate in as many people as possible. Is that curiosity, that wandering nature, that sunset chaser energy. So I'm so grateful that you were down to join me, sit with me today.
Well, this has been beautiful, as are you. Thank you for being here, and I want to say something about Detroit always welcomes you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll just give it the bag and fancy books,
Yeah, okay, so
or I'll sit where you tell me and I'm like.
as I want to remind everyone, we have, if you subscribe to the Bob Center newsletter, you can read Shay in Thinking for Ourselves.
Thank you for ourselves
And
every week.
every week.
1997.
Since 1997, okay, more than somebody been alive, okay?
So thank you both. Our call to action is to read all 3 books and then the next book.
Thanks.
And so, Adrienne, there's a signing table that's on that side. You want to, just kind of walk over there and then we'll kind of look at each other and then we'll go over there and see her.
Awesome, and if you want a picture, just have your camera at the ready. Yeah. Bye, Zoomers.
Bye, Zoomers.